This map might look familiar to you, although the version you usually see might have Mexico labeled here, Canada up here, and the United States in the center. That's right, this is a map of North America. Because we're learning about the beginnings of our country, I wanted to take a moment first and remember the people who lived here long before any European explorers ever set foot on this continent. The names that you see on this slide are the names of many of the indigenous tribes that were here on this continent for hundreds of years before any Europeans ever made an attempt to settle. European exploration was very dangerous to their way of life, and while some of these indigenous tribes still exist today, their way of life has changed drastically, and for many of these tribes, their way of life has disappeared forever. This is Christopher Columbus. He's the most famous of explorers from Europe that came during the 1400s, 1500s, and 1600s to North America to try to settle the land. After his arrival in 1492, several European nations attempted to establish settlements in the Americas. The most successful settlements were the 13 British colonies. Although the colonists lived far from Great Britain, they still considered themselves British, and they were still British citizens. Each colony was different. They were divided into 3 separate regions: the New England colonies, the Middle colonies, and the Southern colonies. Each of these regions had its own specializations in things that they produced and ways that they made a living, the work that they did, their way of life, and their own culture. So even though the 13 colonies were British colonies, each of them was quite different. And for that reason, they felt it was important to have their own government. Each colony had a democracy that gave the colonists the freedom to control and improve their own lives. Self-government was also important to the towns within the colonies. At town meetings, like in this picture, people had a chance to speak before a vote was taken to settle an issue. Take a look at this picture. You can see here that there are many people in this town meeting, but who is missing? What groups of people are not represented at these town meetings? If you said that you didn't notice any women in this picture, any indigenous people in this picture, or any African American or Black people in this picture, you'd be right. Those groups of people were not involved in decision making at the time. The people who made decisions and voted on issues at these town meetings were white male landowners. Keep that in mind going ahead. Remember to ask yourself always, whose voice is missing? What perspective might they have had? Colonists were really proud of the ability to govern themselves and look after their own affairs. Great Britain protected the colonies, and colonists enjoyed the right to govern themselves. But Great Britain also controlled a lot of what the colonists could and could not do. Even though they were British citizens, they were getting a taste of independence and freedom and getting to make their own choices and decisions about their lives. What sorts of problems do you think might arise between the colonists and the monarchy in Great Britain, the king in Great Britain,